Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I enjoy crying. Maybe that sounds weird, but to the right person, they will agree with me. Whenever I'm watching a TV show, whenever I'm watching a movie, it will get a higher rating if it can make me cry. Hell, most of the time, I'm waiting for it to make me cry so that I can deem it good. I know that sounds weird, but I think it just stems from the fact that crying, releases whatever, and it kind of just makes you feel better after you cry. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes it's just nice to break down in a puddle of tears. I don't know. But, anyways, I'm going to be giving you guys book recommendations of books that will have you weeping. I do mean weeping. I will let you guys know, like, how much crying I did while reading the books that I'm going to be recommending to you. So, definitely stay tuned. Um, all the books that I'm going to be mentioning, I own. So, I'm going to pull them off my shelf right now. And in the meantime, I want you guys to watch this clip that happened to me today. And this is just to let you know that I am having a worse day than you. Okay, so yes, that did hurt, but I am totally fine. I don't even have like bruises. Definitely am sore, but like I'm totally fine. Um, so anyways, I have a large stack of books here. So we are going to get into it. I think I'm going to start by like level of sadness. So at the very top, I'm going to start with Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. So I know it's a Colleen Hoover book. Oh my God, don't kill me. Um, I have read maybe three or four Colleen Hoover books. Um, so yeah. So this book is about a girl named Tate and a guy named Miles. So they start to become attracted to each other and they start to um, have kind of a no strings relationship. Um, and Tate wants commitment, but Miles doesn't. And pretty much the whole plot is just trying to figure out why Miles does not want to commit and like what happened to him in his past to make him this like broken shell of a person that he is in the book. Um, no spoilers, but I think I gave this book 3.5 stars. I will say this book was kind of slow at certain parts, but the reason why this is in my kind of category for crying is because there is this specific scene where um, Miles goes and visits his ex girlfriend, and something happened to them in their past to make Miles kind of um, unwilling to love again. And so he goes to his ex girlfriend, and they have such a ugh, such a heartfelt and raw conversation that it completely caught me off guard. I mean, it completely took my breath away. Um, I don't know, it was kind of weird. Like, to be honest, this book was like kind of mid, but when I got to that one scene where where he goes and visits his ex-girlfriend and he's finally able to kind of close that door and he's finally able to, I don't know, I hate to say move on because of what happened, but just try to rebuild. It is absolutely beautiful, absolutely heart-wrenching. Um, and that one scene made the entire book for me. Yeah, and I absolutely adore that scene, so this has to be in there. For me, that scene kind of elicited like a silent cry. It was like a tears were streaming down my face, but I was, trying my best to continue reading. That's kind of what this experience kind of gave me. Yeah. Okay, so the next book I'm going to talk about is Lessons in Chemistry. I read this year, 5 star, perfection. I have zero notes. I have zero notes. Also, did you guys know this is a debut and this author is like in her 50s or 60s? That's so fucking cool. That is so, like, I don't know, inspiring, cool, uplifting. Like, that just, ah, oh my gosh. It just makes me want to know more about her, the author in general. But back to the story. Um, in this book, we are following, ooh, did I forget? We are following Elizabeth Zott. So we are in the 1960s. We're in America. We have our main character, Elizabeth. She is a chemist scientist. And of course, we're in the 60s. So nobody takes her seriously as a female scientist. And I guess the plot is she's trying to be taken seriously. But throughout the story, she falls in love. So she meets her husband. Um, and how much do I want to say? So she meets her husband and she ends up getting an opportunity to be a host of a cooking show. And in this cooking show, she combines her knowledge of chemistry with cooking. So she'll kind of explain how ingredients work and why certain ingredients go well together, or kind of the different um, processes that happen with food using chemistry and science, kind of like terminology and explanations. And that's kind of the vibe of the book. And something super, super traumatic happens in the book, and it caught me completely off guard. So, without saying too much, there's this moment where a sentence says, and 5 minutes later, they died, right? This is really a spoiler because you don't know who I'm talking about. But yeah. And so I read that and I was like, dang, that sucks. I was like, dang, that sucks. And then the next chapter starts and it's kind of like actually going through the scene in which they die. And I am so not smart that when I read that sentence of 5 minutes later they died, I thought they were talking about character B when, next chapter when I read it, they were talking about character A, and it caught me completely off guard. I was literally just crying. I wasn't hysterical, but I was so, I was just not ready for that because, I mean, when I read that one sentence, I just interpreted it completely differently. And it was just, I felt like I was just getting hit by a truck when I guess I shouldn't have. I just read it wrong, but like in my brain, it did not register to me. And so when it happened and they explained how the person died, it just really scrambled me. And it made me depressed, it made me sad, it made me cry, it made me feel bad for the people that are going to have to grieve that person. And yeah, but I definitely recommend this book. It's 5 stars. It's beautiful, women's fiction, historical fiction. But I will say this cover. Look, I don't hate this cover, but I do feel like when I first saw the cover of this book, without reading a synopsis, I truly thought this book was a rom com. And I think the book cover and the book design is a complete disservice to the book. And I think if you go on Goodreads and you look at the reviews of this book, Bonnie Garmis herself, the author, even wrote, I think she responded to a comment and she literally said how she didn't like the cover either. And I was like, dang, that kind of sucks. Because how it is in the industry, you know what I mean? Just because you wrote the book doesn't mean you have the control over kind of every aspect of it. And so, yeah, I do think they did her dirty with that cover because that it's not giving historical fiction, it's not giving women's fiction, it's giving rom-com, and I hate rom-coms with a passion. I absolutely hate rom-coms. Moving on. Okay, so we are building. The next book I want to talk about is A Little Life, and we all know this book. We all know it. We don't have to talk about it. You know what I'm saying? It's literally just following 4 college students post grad, and they're trying to live their lives, and they're trying to um, just discover themselves and continue building up their friendship and striving for their life goals. Um, this book is so fucking long. I mean, almost 800 pages. I think this is the longest book I've ever read. Question mark? Maybe it might be this chunky one, but it's definitely up there. Um, and this book for me, there wasn't a point where I was like inconsolable because I have been that way in some books. But this book didn't leave me inconsolable. It left me I mean, I cried like every 100 pages I was crying, right? So for me, it was like a silent cry. It was like our characters were struck with bad luck chapter after chapter after chapter, and it left me feeling numb. And so when I would read something that was super messed up and super sad, I would just silently cry and have to close the book and breathe and then come back to it. So that was like my experience with the book. I think I ended up giving this 4 stars. I will say that um, the writing is amazing. I truly think there was such breathtaking paragraphs in this book where I was just like, how did she even think of that? But yeah, so pick it up if you want to cry. Now we're gonna build, guys. So these next books, um, you know what? Let me talk about this one. Hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna bring up The Little Liar by Mitch Albom. This is historical fiction, World War II, Nazi Germany. We are in where are we? We're in Greece. We're in Salonika, Greece. Our main character is a kid. He's like preteen, maybe age. Um, and this book is written similarly to The Book Thief, where our narrator is like an entity. So in Book Thief, the book was narrated by death, but in The Little Liar, it is narrated by truth. And so, super quickly, the synopsis of this book is we have our main character, Nico, and he's known around his community, around his town, as a person who never tells a lie. And that's kind of who he is personified to be. And it's true. We get a lot of backstory on his like early childhood, and in like the beginning of the book, he has never told a lie, not even a white lie, like literally never told a lie. And the community and everyone around him kind of knows that information, so they inherently kind of trust him and trust his judgment. So, when the Germans come, of course, the Germans' goal is to take all of the people from the community and put them in trains and send them to Auschwitz. That is their goal. Um, one German soldier actually learns about our main character Nico and learns the kind of trust he yields. And so the soldier goes to Nico and manipulates him and tells him, "Hey, Nico, um, I need you to convince I need you to convince your community to get on these trains next week because we're going to take you guys to a different city and you're going to be given brand new homes. You're going to be given better jobs. It's going to be great for you guys." So, thinking about this, Nico is a child and he truly believes what the German soldier is telling him. So he takes that information and he goes and tells everyone in town, "Hey, we have to go with the Germans. The Germans just told me that we're going to be taken somewhere safe, somewhere with new jobs, new homes. It's going to be great for us." And he believes that information and they believe that information because he's trustworthy. And so the plot really kind of takes off when everyone in the town goes into the trains and is taken not to new jobs and not to new homes, but to, um, I think that was like the most deadliest camp during that time was Auschwitz. So that's really sad. And the story, like I said, is told from the perspective of truth. And it's so beautiful and it's so spectacularly written. And I was crying at multiple different points. Um, but it wasn't like a wail. It wasn't like a I couldn't be consoled. It was just like a I can't believe this is happening, or I feel so bad, or this is so sad. People die, I cry. um, yeah, so that was a 5 star. No notes. That book is perfection. Absolutely no notes. So if you like historical fiction, if you're into that, definitely pick the book up because you will not be let down. You'll be broken as a person actually. That's what's going to happen. Okay, so now we get into the books that wrecked me. That wrecked me. Okay, so let's actually start with One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This was the second book I read of hers. Um, First one I read was Seven Husbands, which is another 5 star book, perfection, no notes. So this book is about our main character Emma. Now Emma marries her high school sweetheart, and her husband has some weird job where he has to like go um, overseas, and so her husband gets on a helicopter and he ends up going missing, and so he's missing. He's assumed dead at this point. So kind of like fast forward, our main character Emma at the start of the book is now engaged to a different person. And the book literally starts with her getting a phone call and she answers the phone and she's like, "Hi, who's this?" And it's literally her dead husband. Oh my God. Yeah. So it's like her dead husband who's not dead because, he was just missing. Um, and he was like on a remote island and he somehow found a way out of that and he's like back home now. And so now Emma has a husband who she thought was dead, who's not dead, and she has a fiance. So the plot of this book is she has to figure out who she loves, or like not who she loves because obviously she loves both of them, but she has to figure out who she's going to spend the rest of her life with, and it is so grueling. It is so, oh my gosh, you get like flashbacks of when her and her first husband like fell in love and you get so attached to them, but then you get scenes with her and her new fiance and you get so attached to them and you just are just pulled left and right and you are waterboarded with love from both men. You are waterboarded with love, and that is what makes it such a heartbreaking read because they are both good men. He's a good man, Savannah. They were both good men, but she knew that she was going to have to choose, and she knew that she was going to break someone's heart. And there is this powerful, powerful scene where she is talking to one of the men, and just oh, letting it all out, kind of explaining to whoever um, why the relationship won't work. And it is thought out so spectacularly. I've never been married, so obviously I can't speak too much on that, but the writing was spectacular. Emma as a character felt so real and so tangible. Guys, that was a book where, okay, I might be crazy and that's fine, but for me, that specific scene was so tangible for me to where I started reading out loud and I was like crying slash reading out loud. I have a reading vlog. You can go check it out. Um, and I did keep some clips in where I'm literally reading the book out loud to no one but me and crying and literally acting out as if I'm Emma and the person. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm all the characters. I'm everyone. And it was so satisfying and it was so heart-wrenching and so beautiful and so awesome. Yeah, it was awesome. Okay, next book. Um, the last two books I have, I'll be honest with you, there are more books that I've read where I have cried, where I have wailed, like wailed, but can't fit all of them in this video. So I just picked the ones on the shelf. Um, but the next two that I'm going to talk about, the first one, The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein. I read this year. This is a dog book. I had never previously read a dog book. So, also, I don't own a dog and I've never like owned a pet long term. So, I when I went into this book, I didn't think it would hit this hard because I personally don't know that. I haven't lived that experience. Right? Um, and so in this book, we are following a dog, and the dog is our narrator. His name is Enzo. Love that name. And it's literally just his life. Like it kind of starts with him. Um, let's see. Like the first chapter is him as an old dog, and he's kind of just talking about his life. And then we continue on, and then he goes back to when he was a little puppy, and he got picked up by his owner Denny, and then Denny got married and had a kid, and they had a family, and Enzo was part of that family, and it's really just like like a dog movie, literary fiction, home life, family life with a dog from a dog's perspective, and it was brilliant. I genuinely don't know how this author even thought of the things he put in this book. I It was brilliant, right? And so here I am. I think I had like 30 pages of the book left. It was I stopped reading at like 12 o'clock, put the book down, got in bed. I laid in bed. I kid you not, for an hour. I laid in bed for an hour. I could not fall asleep. I don't know why. I just couldn't fall asleep. So I start tossing and turning. And I'm thinking to myself, wait, I only have 30 minutes, 30 pages of this book left. I could finish it and maybe it'll help me sleep. That's what I told myself. That's what I told myself. And so I go and I grab my Kindle, turn my Kindle on, and I start reading. And of course, I'm having a great time because it's a great book and it's written great. But here we are, we're getting to the end. You all know how dog movies and books end. We all know, all right? So it comes and I didn't it comes and I didn't know how much I had grown to love and care about Enzo until he was leaving. I didn't know how much I didn't know. And it was just so sad because not only was I sad as the reader, but having Enzo being the narrator, he's kind of seeing his owner his owner grieving him, and it's just like crazy. It's crazy. Um it's crazy. And that was so good. Um and so there's this plot line at the very end of the book where something along the lines of reincarnation happens, which is a topic they discussed throughout the book. So something of that sort occurs or is hinted at, or like a wishful thinking kind of thing. And when I tell you, I had to cover my mouth to keep myself from screaming. I had to cover my mouth to keep myself from screaming because it was 2 a.m. at this point. And I literally was like, I cannot wake up my family. Like, I need to shut the fuck up. And so I am like heaving. I'm just like, tears are raining down my face. I'm trying to cover my mouth. I'm trying to breathe. I'm trying to just calm myself. And, as I'm freaking out, I'm thinking, why in the world did I decide to finish this book right now? Why did I decide? Why did I think that was a good idea? Because it wasn't. It wasn't. Um, yeah. So that is one book that had me wailing at 2 a.m. Family's asleep. Gotta stay quiet. Hand over mouth. Just um, in my bed, fetal position, trying to breathe. No notes. I mean, this is spectacular. Pick it up. Pick it up. Okay. I have one more book recommendation to give you guys. This is our last one. Now, I saved this for last because it affected me the most. And because if you ask me what is my favorite like standalone book, this is it. The next book I'm about to show you guys is my favorite standalone book. And I will never stop thinking about it. Um, and it kind of makes me want to cry right now, but I'm okay. So, last book is My Sister's Keeper by Jodi Picoult. Now, this book this book ripped my soul out and didn't give it back. It didn't give it back. Um, this book follows our main character Anna. Now, in this book, Anna is 13 years old, and let me try to give you a rundown of. Let me set the scene here. So, Anna's 13 years old, right? And her parents, they had their first child, whose name is Kate. So, first her parents had Kate, all right? So, when Kate was like 5, 6 years old, Kate was diagnosed with leukemia. So, they tried to find Kate a blood match for a bone marrow transplant. They could not find one. And so the parents had the idea of, well, if the best match possible would be a blood match, a family member, and none of us are a match, what if we had another baby for the sole purpose to save Kate? And so they did. And so they had Anna. And so Anna's our main character. She's 13 years old, and she was made for the sole purpose to save her sister. And just let that sink in. Imagine. Imagine. So we're kind of thrust into the story, and Anna, being 13 years old, she, for her entire life, has been made to, at random times, taken out of school, made to go to the hospital to take blood tests. She's forced to have procedures to give certain um just like certain things to her sister, so like I don't know, blood, platelets, whatever the case is. um and it's gotten to the point where Anna does not feel like her body is her own, and she does not feel like she has autonomy to decide how her body is used and for what purposes. And I think if we just sit in that alone is so heartbreaking, to think of a 13-year-old girl whose parents are making her go to the hospital, making her take procedures and do all these medications and literally not go to school so that they can have parts for her older sister, Kate, who still has cancer. And so the plot of this book, really interestingly, is Anna decides at 13 years old to go to a lawyer's office. So she goes and she meets with an attorney, and she literally tells this man, "Hey, I'm 13 years old. My older sister has leukemia, and my parents, for my entire life, have been forcing me to dole out parts of my body for her. And I am tired of it. I'm done. And I no longer want them to have control over me." So she um, is attempting to get emancipation from her parents, so they no longer have control over if, when, how, her body is used. it's crazy. I think that was the first time I had ever heard of that, which I mean, I think they call it a donor baby. And I think after reading this book, I've actually seen this a lot more in media. And it's so weird to me because it's almost like this it won't end well. It just won't. It's not going to go well because even if, you have a child and it just happened to be a match, that doesn't mean it's going to go, it doesn't mean it's going to work. And if you have a child just to save your other child, do you even love them? I mean that for real, with my whole chest. Do you even love them? So it's really just the story of Anna trying to get emancipation from her parents. She does not want to give any more parts of her to her sister. There is a scene, it's not even a spoiler, but there's a scene where she literally, I don't know if she's talking to her sister or she's talking to herself. I honestly don't know. But she's talking and she's literally saying, I love my sister to death. I love her more than anything, but I am no longer willing to give her any more of me. And when she said that shit, I was blown away because it that is such an adult decision. And granted, I do think she should have the authority to make that decision, but that is such a incredibly just can you imagine? Oh, can you imagine? Like it's gotten bad when you were saying like even if I get emancipated today, I'm not giving you any more. Like do you know how bad it's got to be for you to say that? So anyways, um I cried at the very end. I'm not going to give you spoilers because I truly want you guys to read this book. It is my favorite standalone book I have ever read in my entire life. Trust me. But when I got to the end and what happened happened, I lost it. I lost my mind. I went crazy. I went crazy. Um, and I was reading the book I was reading the book like in the kitchen. Like everybody was in the kitchen, so I was just in there reading. And I got to the end of the book and I felt something was about to happen. And so I can literally feel myself about to cry. And so I start walking to my room kind of fast. And like my brother starts following me because he's like, What are you doing? What are you doing? Annoying. And then the closer I get to my room, the more I read and the more, and I just know something is about to go badly. And when that something happens, I got guys, when I tell you it was probably the most embarrassing kind of reaction I've ever had reading a book, I mean that. Like when I say snot was down my chin, I mean that. When I say I couldn't breathe out of my nose, I mean that. When I say I had to lock my door because my brother was laughing at me by how much this book affected me, I mean that. When I say there were tears on that book that I had to fucking turn the page hella slow to make sure nothing tore, I mean that. Oh, if I could reread and re-experience any book, it would be that one. That would be at the top of my list to wipe my brain and live it over again. Which is crazy because like I said, it ripped my soul out and it didn't return it. It's still gone. Where's my soul? So, yeah, those are my books, guys. Go read them. Leave some comments down below of some books that broke you because, like I said, I love a good cry. And I'm always kind of not really searching, but I love to read a book that is going to break me. So if you have any suggestions, if you think you can get me to break, let me know. Yeah, this was very fun. See you guys.